titled Bubba Joe Gets It, and her favorite author, who I believe also inspired this piece, is Louis L'Amour. Okay, for those of you who don't know, Louis L'Amour wrote whole 80 books of westerns, and in just about every of them, there is the standard western showdown that you see in a lot of movies. This is my version, which answers the question, what would happen if someone from Michigan decided to get into one of those showdowns? Bubba Joe Gets It. In Big Rock, Kansas, on the day that Ben Bear Travers was going to kill Bubba Joe, the sun baked the rattlesnakes in their skins. Even the breeze paused to watch the proceedings. The braver spectators lined the porches and steps of the clapboard buildings, while the timid peered from windows or peeked over the saloon doors. The sheriff watched from the jailhouse, rocking in his chair as he waited to judge the fairness of the fight. In Dodge or Abilene, a showdown wouldn't cause the dust to stir, but Big Rock hadn't had a decent gun battle since Blind Jim tried to shoot Sam's old hound dog for keeping him up all night. It didn't help that no one knew exactly where Big Rock was. It was so far out in nowhere that a body had to be lost to find it. That's how Bubba Joe and I ended up here in the first place. I found a spot on a bench next to an old-timer filling his pipe. Under his beat-up cowboy hat, his face resembled a piece of leather after it had been left out in the sun too long and chewed on by a mule. His hat covered his hair, but his round chin bristled with gray whiskers like prickles on a barrel cactus. Behind me in the hotel, Joe would be riding in his gear. We'd been friends for years, ever since we'd been a pair of greenhorns in Missouri. He'd been known as Joseph Bubba Ridgink back then, before time had shortened it to Bubba Joe. At the far end of the street, Bear Travers stomped into the open. Little swirls of dust trailed his ponderous boots. His legs bloated his Levi's while sweat plastered his red plaid shirt to his broad chest. At his side, his gun swung so low that the end of the holster rested at his knee. Just above the gun butt, his pudgy paw hovered like a crow over a wolf kill. The old-timer next to me jabbed his head at Bear. They say he's got 12 notches on that gun, and I reckon he's killed more with his hands. I snorted. Only a tin horn would notch his gun like that. A true gunman wouldn't scratch his gun to prove how good he was. His drawn aimed at his cocking forearm. I pulled out my pocket knife, pried a chunk of wood from the porch, and started whittling. What'd that filler do to Rattle Bear? The old-timer lit his pipe and leaned back against the building behind us. Bear don't cotton to drinking sarsaparilla and not whiskey. I studied the wood for a moment. Not that the drink was worth all this trouble. Weren't nothing like what Bubba Joe's ma used to make. He's been looking for stuff like it for years. Without a scuff on the chipped boards, Bubba Joe stood beside me. Tall and lanky as a beech tree, Bubba Joe wore gray deerskin pants with a plain blue shirt and deerskin vest. Under his white blonde hair, his blue eyes glittered in his hard, tanned face. You got any line, Joe? I asked, shaving a curl from the wood. Yup. Bubba Joe held up a stick with a thin string tied to one end. Without another word, he strolled into the middle of the street with the rolling gait of a woodsman. Squinting, he faced Bear Travers. You partners? The old-timer asked, his tiny eyes peering out from his wrinkles. Yep, I said, digging my knife into the wood. Met him in St. Louis. He came from over Michigan way. I heard that he can't shoot. Took a draw on his pipe. He can't shoot a six-shooter. I tipped back on the bench as I watched Bubba Joe and Bear Travers stalk closer together. He'd have to stick his gun to a rattler's head and hope he don't miss. Mighty risky way of doing things, the old-timer drawled. His eyes never strayed from the showdown in the street. Sure is, but he can shoot a rattler's nose off with a rifle. Said it comes from shooting squirrels out of trees. I continued whittling. He ain't packing a rifle. The man tugged on his hat brim. Bear's eyebrows scrunched together as he tried to figure this puzzle out. Bubba Joe's gun rested at his left side, where only a left-handed man would wear it, and no one carried a stick into a gun battle. "What's that for?" Bubba Joe lifted it slightly. "It's a pole. I'm going to beat you with it." The Michigan twang in his voice stood out like a banjo in a band of harmonicas. Bear Travers laughed, sounding like a choking bulldog. "You're a Michigander. Maybe I'll pluck you and eat you for dinner." Bubba Joe said nothing. His mouth twitched as he raised the stick. Only 10 feet separated them now. Growling, Bear Travers spread his bow legs out farther. His right arm stiffened. His fingers trembled with impatience. "I reckon your pard's about to get it." The old-timer puffed on his pipe. "You might." I glanced up briefly, but returned my attention to my carving. Bear Travers' hand flashed down. As his gun rushed up, Bubba Joe whipped his pole up and snapped his wrist. The line sliced the air. The tiny hook at the end snagged the gun's hammer and yanked that gun right out of Bear's hand before it could even fire a shot. The old-timer's pipe fell from his mouth. "Well, that's just... he must be the bestest fisher this side of the old Mississippi." I slid to my feet, handing him the trout I'd been carving as I walked down the steps. "Yep, he sure is."